Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. And now, here are Bob and Richard.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Today, Richard and I are going to go through our mailbag of emails sent to us at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com, answering some of your questions that we've allowed to pile up. And we're also going to be talking about what we saw in G2E, which is an annual gaming show taking place in the fall in Las Vegas. This year it happened the last week of September. And we're going to be looking at some of the new games that we saw and we thought were interesting. Before we talk about G2E, we've had a number of emails. First, we got an email from a guy, and we told him, we're going to talk about it on the air. What do you want us to call you? And he said Scrooge McDuck. So, Mr. Scrooge, here we go. Scrooge makes good money on a job. He doesn't like this job, and he's considering becoming a full-time AP. He does have a $150,000 bankroll, which is pretty enviable as far as starting out APs go. And he wants to know whether he should move to Las Vegas to pursue his passion. What do you think about this, Richard?
The question is, how much experience do you have, and what games are you planning to play? So if he's going to come here and try to play blackjack, I think someone who comes here with $150,000 and is perfect, can count cards perfectly, I think can run around and make a living here. But it's going to be hard work. You're going to be working 30 or 40 hours a week, and with a lot of shoe leather being expended. I think the best way to go about that, if you're going to do it counting cards, specifically counting cards, is to kind of run and gun, to figure out what the most action a casino will take. Maybe two hands of 200 or 300, maybe some of the better places you can go up to 400, maybe some of the lower places you might have to bet a little bit less, and hit him for one shoe, and hit the door, and just run around from place to place to place. I think you can grind out a living that way. It's not a very glamorous life. It's an awful lot of work, awful lot of shoe leather. Now, another option would be to play poker. I have no idea how good a poker player he is. But I think someone could pretty easily make $25 an hour or something playing poker, 25 or 30. I think you'd make more than that playing blackjack. It would be a healthier lifestyle playing blackjack, because you'd be getting a lot more exercise. Sitting in a chair playing poker, I think, is a pretty unhealthy lifestyle. But one way that I think he could supplement that and do better than just the blackjack, and Bob, you can comment on this, is if he also added video poker to his repertoire. So what do you think if he comes with his 150 and he's going to play blackjack and video poker?
Well, is he any good at video poker?
Well, yeah, I agree. At whatever game he's playing, he's got to be very good at the game, or he's going to go broke.
There are thousands of players living in Las Vegas who are trying to make it in video poker, and some are successful. And whether he's in this group or not, I don't know. It is not nearly as easy to make a living at video poker as it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But the tools to do it are easier to come by now. So there's still a small percentage who can make a decent living, but it requires a lot of hard work there. And I think for many people, it's harder to do it at video poker than at blackjack. The blackjack if you can count perfectly in the various kinds of games, there's relatively few kinds of games. Either the dealer stands on soft 17 or he doesn't. Either they allow double after split or they don't. So there are rule variations and it does affect things, but they're relatively minor. In video poker, jacks are better is nothing like deuces wild. And double bonus is different yet. And you might end up playing at 4 or 5 good casinos and playing a different game at each casino. It takes a while to meet the right people.
Actually, that's a really important point. I think to be successful at any of these games, a big predictor of your success is going to be on the game Survivor, they call it your social game. Meeting people and establishing a network with other players, I think, is essential for being successful. Because that's how you end up getting information and sharing information with other people, which greatly increases your income.
Not so rarely, players come up to me and say, Bob, why don't you tell me all the games that you play in which casinos so I can be a professional player too. For some reason, I'm not really interested in doing that. The reason they're my plays is because I think they're the best ones, and it took me a long time to figure this out. And there are friends who share information with me, and I share information with them. But it takes a while to get into our confidence and for us to consider that you're an equal and can bring something to the party. None of us are really interested in give. Another factor that we haven't really talked about yet is this guy in Scrooge McDuck sent an email, a couple of AP plays that he's done in the last 2 months. And he's made some money at it. And but he's burned those out. Those were the low-hanging fruit that he knew about, and they're no longer available to him. More fruit's going to be harder to pick. So if you're going to make it in Vegas, I strongly suggest start taking week-long trips here during your vacation time and seeing if you can do it. You now have a fallback position of a really good paying job. You might not like it, but it's really good paying. If you quit it, you might not be able to get it back. So you ought to be able to find out if you can do it before you move here.
You know, I want to add something else. First of all, a separate issue. I'm a big believer in quitting. If you're in a job you don't like, my attitude is quit. Find something else to do. Life is too short to work at a job you hate. Now, it may not be being an advantage player, but, you can always find some other job. But the other thing that I think is really important is to be a successful advantage player, you have to be what they call a self-starter. And some people, it's just extremely difficult for them to get up in the morning and go out and pound the pavement. And it's not an easy thing to do. And that's a requirement if you're going to try to make it at this. So that's another issue before you consider moving here is, are you going to be able to get up and go out and really pound the pavement every day?
And another issue is, I don't know if you have a social life, if your wife or girlfriend, hopefully not both, want to come here with you. That can be an issue for many people. If you're single and that's not an issue, fine. But it's something to consider for many people.
I like your idea of coming here for a week at a time and trying it out and seeing, how many hours do you actually put in, and is that the way you want to, is that the lifestyle you want after you've experienced it for a week or two?
All right. Let's go on to our next duck. We've done with Miss Scrooge. Somebody wanted to know about bringing money into the United States. The player, he wants to advise somebody who's currently in Germany, wants to be touring the United States for about 90 days, counting cards, and bringing in $40,000 to $50,000. How should he go about this, Steve? Richard?
So just coincidentally, yesterday, I saw someone I hadn't seen in 33 years. 33 years ago, I traveled to Europe for the first time, and I was playing with my partner Daryl, and we ended up in England, and I needed British pounds. And my friend Kat Holbert, who's been on the show, called a friend of hers who lived in England and said, these two blackjack players are coming there. Could you give them 20,000 pounds? When they're done playing blackjack, they'll give it back to you, or if they lose, they'll give you dollars at an exchange rate, and if they win, you can buy their excess pounds and give them dollars and, make a few bucks on the transaction. And we ended up meeting this guy who had never seen us before in his life, and he just handed us 20,000 pounds. That is the best way to get money in another country, is having friends, what we were talking about with the last emailer, a social game. Because of my friendship with Kat and her friendship with a blackjack player who lived in England, I was able to do that. Now, I realized not everybody has friends like that, but that is the way a lot of big players do move their money, is having contacts in other countries. So that would be the first choice, is an arrangement like that. The second choice, I would say, is, he was coming from Germany. I would say, see if there is a bank in Germany that also has branches in the United States where you could open an account and explain to them, I want to withdraw this money in the United States, and see if you can make an arrangement that way. That'd be another choice. A third choice would be to talk to a bank about wiring money to it, and explain to them you want to wire money to a bank in Las Vegas and be able to pick it up in cash in various places around the United States. And then the last way is to bring the money in cash. But the most important thing, if you bring the money in cash, is to make sure that you declare it. There's no reason to try to avoid. Not only is it illegal and the money could get confiscated, 99% of the time, if you just declare it, you're not going to have any problem at all. So those are some options. I don't even know if they sell traveler's checks anymore. I think those have sort of gone by the wayside. That now they have these prepaid debit cards or something. So anyway, those are the ways I would go about trying to bring the money over here for your play.
Okay, I don't really have anything to add to this. So let's talk to our third email.
Well, let me ask you a question, Bob. If you go to Europe, there isn't really any video poker there, so you don't have that issue of trying to take money over there, right?
Well, there is video poker, but that wouldn't be why I was going to Europe. And so the only reason I'd be going to Europe is as a vacation with Bonnie. So at this point, I'm not likely to travel internationally for...
Where you need to take money, yeah.
Yeah. So our third email that we want to talk about is a guy we're going to call Pete. Pete lives in California, not too far from Vegas. He came to Vegas to play blackjack, and when he bet low, he was unnoticed by pit personnel, not so surprisingly. Earlier today, when he sent the email, he was at Caesar's Palace, and he got trespassed. He was betting from 1-25 up to 1 times 250 on a 6-deck shoe. It took Caesar's about 15 minutes to figure out they didn't want him, and they got rid of him big time. So what he wants to know first, when Caesars bans somebody, does that include all of Caesars Entertainment or just Caesars Palace? Richard?
Well, first of all, if he got picked off in 15 minutes betting 25 to 250 at Caesar's Palace, it sounds to me like there may be a flyer out on him. So it's very possible that he was playing in some other Caesars property and they flyered him and he got to Caesars and they picked him off in 15 minutes. That would be very rare to have that kind of problem at Caesar's Palace in that short amount of time. If he did, then he may have a serious problem with his act, because you should be able to play a long time with that bet spread at Caesar's Palace. That's first of all. Second of all, we've had Bob Nersessian and Bob Loeb on the show numerous times. We've talked about this issue. Legally, they cannot 86 you from all their different properties because they're all under different corporate names, and apparently it's the owner that actually is trespassing you, so they're under different names, so technically, legally, you're not trespassing. Now, that doesn't mean that you may not get harassed. I would not worry about going into other Caesars properties, but that does not mean that at some point you may not get 86'd again. It's possible they could arrest you if they really got pissed off, but I would say highly unlikely. So I would stay out of Caesar's Palace for probably 6 months. And, I would stay out of the Caesar's properties in Vegas probably for a few weeks. But other than that, I really wouldn't worry about it much.
All right. His second question, was his bet spread too aggressive?
Not for Caesar's Palace. I mean, it's only a 1 to 10 spread and a top bet of $250. No, I would expect our first emailer who was talking about coming to Vegas and could he make a living, I would expect him to be able to play up to 2 hands of 300, 2 hands of 350 for many, many, many hours at Caesar's Palace. Not all at one time. You can't just sit there and camp out and do that. But if you go in and you play a shoe in the back pit and maybe play another shoe in the front pit and then hit the door, I would think you would last a very long time with that kind of spread. Now, in one of the station properties or one of the coast properties, you're not going to last very long, there. So each property is different. So you can't have one spread that's going to work for everywhere in Las Vegas.
Okay, his next question, is there an effective way to camouflage his play without giving up more than a small amount of EV?
No, I'm not a believer in the stuff that's in burning the tables in Las Vegas. I think your edge is so small, counting cards, and the amount you're betting is small enough that I do not think you should give up any EV by doing any of those kind of cover plays. I think you should play it perfectly, go to the bathroom on negative counts, play very short sessions, hit and run, and I think that's the best way to go about it with the top bet that you're dealing with.
He's wondering if he's burned out in Vegas, should he start playing internationally? And if so, where does he find out where the best place to play internationally are?
Oh, well, just ask me. I'll tell you all the secret games and that are worth thousands of dollars an hour.
I'm sure.
Not. First of all, it sounds like your bankroll is really not big enough to focus on international play.
He says it is just shy of 6 figures.
Yeah. I would still say that's not big enough to focus on international play. The thing about international play is you go to a lot of countries, find crappy games where you don't get in much time, and then every once in a while you find a gold mine. But the expenses can eat you alive if you have a small bankroll. So you can't afford to be spending $800 on plane fare to go to a place and not be able to make back what you're spending in EV. But the United States is a huge place, and there are casinos everywhere in the United States. So get in your car and drive to the next state. Drive to Arizona, and then when you're done there, drive to New Mexico, and on and on and on. I mean, there are, I don't know, 1,000 casinos in the United States. I don't know how many are there, but there are plenty of them for you to go and get burned out in all of them. So much cheaper to keep your play in the United States, and unless you establish a network of friends, other players, you establish that network, and somebody says, hey, the game is in Puerto Rico, let's go. Well, then fine. Then you can afford to jump on a plane and go to Puerto Rico if you know that there's a game there that's going to be worth your while.
All right. Let's go on to our fourth email. There's a player in Atlantic City who basically would be happy playing coming out even and just call it basically free entertainment. What he does is he plays at a casino where the blackjack has about a 0.4 house edge. He plays $25, 60 hands an hour, 7 hours a day, which adds up to an expected loss of $42. He gets a match play coupon of $100. That's what the casino gives him, and he figures that's worth $49. And they give him $20 a day in comps. So that's a basically break even. So he wants to know if he's done the math right, and would this be a good play? Richard.
Well, first of all, for this kind of player, it's essential to read the book Comp City, which sounds like maybe he already has, but if he hasn't, he definitely should. So has he done the math right? 60 hands at $25 is $1,500 minus 0.4. Wait, did I just mess that up?
No, you did. It's minus 0.4, $6 an hour times $7 hours makes it $42. So I think that's about it.
Yeah, so
I think that's right.
So $42. So if he's getting a coupon for $120 in food, he doesn't say whether they're including his room, which I would hope they are. Sounds like he's got a good plan. If he could try to do a few of the tricks in Comp City to make the bosses maybe improve his average bet to higher than $25, and maybe they'll give him a little bit better of a coupon. But sounds like he's getting a free vacation, and sounds like a very reasonable plan to me. Sounds like he's doing it right.
Very good. All right. So that's our emails for this week. And
send us more.
Send us more. Good.
Send us your video poker questions so Bob gets to answer some of these.
Yeah, well, I'm not exactly feeling left out, especially in the next section. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be carrying it. So,
okay.
The South Point has more than 10,000 games, returning more than 99%. This is more than anybody else has. There are 2 separate casino-wide progressives running at all time during October. The larger begins at 10,000 and must be hit by 25,000. All players playing with the club card are eligible to win. If you aren't the lucky one who hits it, but are playing at the time, you will receive $25 in free play. The smaller progressive begins at 1,000 and must be hit before 2,500. It is scheduled to be hit 3 times a day throughout the month. On Monday, October 31st, Halloween, there will be 2 times points on all video poker, much bigger multipliers on slots, no limits, midnight to midnight, trick or treat. At videopoker.com, it's the best place to play lots of games. If you sign up for the gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get corrections on most of the games, including quick quads. Speaking about quick quads, it's the game of the week, and in the 100 play version. Quick Quads is a 6-coin per line game where when you get a 3 of a kind, plus 2 other cards whose rank adds up to the rank of the 3 of a kind, it counts as a quick quad. For example, 10, 10, 10, 8, 2, or 5, 5, 5, 4 ace, or even 2, 2, 2 ace ace. So you get lots more 4 of a kinds. Comes with nice sound effects. It's one of my favorite games, just game type wise, in terms of being fun. It's a cool game to play. All right, let's go back to our discussion.
The G2E, Global Gaming Expo, is a show for industry employees, the people who work at casinos. So new machines, new table games, uniforms, advertising agencies, food products, entertainment options, all kinds of stuff are at G2E. And so every year I go and look at the new video poker games. This year I'm going to talk about a few of them. Some of talking about video poker in depth doesn't lend itself to the radio. On October 11th, in my column, which is published at bobdancer.com or at gamblingwithanedge.com, I talk about these same games in more detail. So if they sound interesting to you and you want to know some of the details, that's a good place to look. IGT has something like 90% of the video poker market in this country. So they come up with 4 or 5 or 8 new games a year, and most of the other companies come up with 0. This year there was one from another company that was worth talking about. We're going to start with IGT. First one is called Magic Deal Poker. You pay 10 coins per line to play the game. About 3.8% of the time, which is 1 per 26 hands, you get 1, 2, or very rarely 3 mystery cards. Those mystery cards are chosen after you've played the hand to be the very, very best they could be. So, sort of this is like Dream Card. Dream Card, you get a mystery card once only, or 1 card max, and the value is selected before you draw. In Magic Deal, the value is selected after you draw. Huge difference. 10 coins a line means you pay twice as much as the game is worth most of the time. Because only one time in 26 do you have these multipliers. The other 25 out of 26 times, you're paying 10 coins and getting back something worth 5 coins. So your score is going to dump until you get the multiplier, which can go way, way up. It's much easier to get royals and 4 aces and all kinds of good things when you get the multipliers, but it's random what you get, and you're not always going to get something good on these multipliers. Also, it seems like the multipliers are kind of like deuces in Deuces Wild, and players who play Deuces Wild will have a better idea of how to use the multipliers than players who don't. But they're not the same. Take the example of you're dealt king, queen of 1 suit, let's say spades, another queen, red one, and 2 mystery cards. Now, in Deuces Wild, on a hand like this, if those mystery cards were deuces, you would hold the 4 of a kind. You would hold queen, queen, deuce, deuce. In this game, you hold queen, queen, the king, queen of spades, and the 2 mystery cards. Why is there so much difference? Because in Deuces Wild, when you connect on the royal, it's what they call a wild royal, which is 125 coins, 100 coins, something like that. In Magic Deal, when you get the good card for the royal, it's a real royal worth 4,000. So it comes out to be worth quite a bit more to go for the royal than it does to be going for the 4 queens. So there's a lot of different plays, so your intuition of how to play these particular hands is different. That said, I like the game. It isn't that hard to figure out, but you kind of need to figure out a lot of the possibilities beforehand. All right. Do you have any thought about that, Richard, before I talk about the next one?
No.
All right. There were 2 new Ultimate X games.
Wait, I'm sorry. I do have one question. Are these games available in casinos already?
Some are, some aren't. I don't have the list in front of me as to where they are in casinos.
Okay, but these are games that you might find out there currently.
Yeah, now on videopoker.com, happens to be one of our sponsors, they have a list of where each of their games are found. It doesn't tell you, their list doesn't tell you denomination. Their list doesn't tell you pay schedule. So but it does tell you if the game is out there. And if it's in Red Rock Casino, it would be on that list. Okay. Ultimate X. Ultimate X has been out several years. It's a game where you pay 10 coins per line, and you earn multipliers on the next hand based on your score this hand. There have been 2 new variations of Ultimate X at this year's show. One, I think, with a small variation, could be very, very successful. One I'm a little bit skeptical of. On the one I think can be successful is what they call Ultimate X Spin Poker. Spin Poker is a 9-line game. It's actually 3 lines, and there's 9 zigzagging lines as they go through it. So they just combine Spin Poker and Ultimate X together. So it's sort of like 10 play. The difference is your hands are correlated in Spin Poker more. If you were dealt ace, king, queen, jack of one suit in the first 4 spaces, and you'd hold them, of course, and you drew that last one, there's 3 times, 3 different empty spots. So you're either going to get 0 royals or 3 royals. From that position, you cannot get 1 royal. You cannot get 2. You have to get 3 or 0. On 4 of the 5 columns, that's always the case. In the center columns, it's not 3 each. It's the top and bottom are 2 each, and the middle one is 5 times. The average is 3. So that extra correlation means this is a streakier game than regular Ultimate X. This is a higher variance game than regular Ultimate X. And regular Ultimate X is very, very high variance. The feature that I did not like, and I hope they make the change before they bring it out to market, is in regular Ultimate X, on your last hand, you can pay 5 coins per line and play off all your multipliers and not earn any new ones. So any multipliers that you have paid to create, you get to pay off. In bonus poker, Ultimate X Spin Poker, there is no option to play the play off your multipliers. And so if there's any multipliers left, you just got to leave them for the next guy. And there will be next guys. There are, I suppose you call them fleas, are people who play off Ultimate X multipliers. They go around until they find them, and then they play them off. So this game will feed the fleas. Now, there are a lot of APs who include Ultimate X bonus hustling in their job. And so this might be a payday for them. There's another Ultimate X new game. It's called Bonus Streak Ultimate X. And when you earn a certain level of hand, say a straight or higher, you earn 3 or 4 bonuses over the next 3 or 4 hands. So one game might give you a bonus of 2x, 3x, 4x, 8x, and 12x over the next 5 hands. That is a realistic stream. And so that's a lot of future value. And each hand is played quite a bit differently depending on what the sum of the multipliers is. Not all the hands earn different multiplier streams. So the strategy for Bonus Streak Ultimate X will be considerably different than regular Ultimate X. It'll be really hard to calculate, way beyond my capabilities. There are programmers, I suppose, who are going to focus on this. My guess is not many. So the game is likely only going to exist for low stakes and among recreational players and bonus hustlers. There will be lots of bonus extra multipliers left over, but you gotta pay for them to play them off, and you're going to create some more. So this is a endless cycle for the bonus hustler seekers. So I suppose if the bonus is added to 12 when you sat down and next hand there's only 6, well, maybe that's time to move on. Who knows? The bonus hustlers will figure that one out. The fourth game, new game at IGT, is called Color Match Royals. So this is on a royal, like a black royal would be ace, king, queen of spades, and jack, 10 of clubs. So it's all black, but it pays 2,000 coins instead of the 4,000 royals usually do. So you're going to get these royals about 11 times as often as you usually do, even though most of them only pay half as much. They also added the features to colored straight flushes and colored flushes. It usually ends up you go for flushes all the time, same color flushes all the time. You're dealt 5 cards. There will always be at least 3 of them that are either black or red. And those are the ones you go for. Those are the ones you hold. So the strategy is very simple and very boring. For beginning players, it might be fine. I prefer a more complex strategy that is more interesting than always hold the same color. There is a strategy for it on videopoker.com. You can look at it if you're interested. Another game that I liked is called Flip and Pay. Flip and Pay is a game where cards will change from one rank to another within the same suit. For example, if you have a 5 of hearts, that card will flip either into the 6 of hearts or the 4 of hearts, assuming those cards don't already exist. It only flips when the resulting hand has a higher expected value than it would without flipping, and there's only one flip per game, and there could be no duplicates. So if you were dealt 3 aces, say diamonds, spades, and hearts, and a king of spades, it's going to look like flipping that king of spades to the ace of spades would give you 4 aces, but there was already an ace of spades in the hand. So it won't flip. You get no choice on what it flips to. You can unflip if you want to. I never found a case where unflipping was the right play. There are some hands that I considered where unflipping would be useful, but the only time it would be useful is if it was a lower EV after the flip, and according to the rules, that doesn't happen. An example, so in my article, there are a few cases where a flip would be unflipped, but it would have to break the rules, and I didn't find any case where that happened. So generally, if it flips, you go with it. Let's go to scientific games. Scientific games absorb WMS, and it absorbed Bally Gaming. WMS was used to be Williams Gaming. So all of the video poker minds who used to be at WMS or Bally's now work for Scientific Game. They created basically a ripoff of Triple Play. The Triple Play patent expired last year, or maybe it was June of this year, but recently. And so they have the Scientific Game. One machine has something they call single hand, triple hand, 5 hand, 10 hand, 25 hand, 50 hand, and 100 hand, which look very much like triple play, 5 play, 10 play, etc., up to 100 play. The games are the same name is on the videopoker.com version. The same pay schedules generally, but they bribe the players to play it. And the way they bribe it is on 9-6 jacks or better, instead of getting 250 for the straight flush, you get 275 for the straight flush. So that adds about 0.05%. It's taking it from 99.54 to 99.59. That could be a difference to some players. I did not play the game long enough to get a good sense of how the sounds work and the feel of the buttons and those kind of things. Generally speaking, it has not sold well. There are features to this game which are very similar to ones that were in a WMS game that came out 2 or 3 years ago. But that game, WMS gave it or sold it to Harrah's Corporation, now called Caesars, on a national monopoly. It was only at Harrah's for 6 months. And in the Vegas local market, they gave it to Station Casinos for 6 months. Both Stations and Harrah's put it with pretty bad pay schedules, and players never took to it. And so after those relatively bad results, other casinos weren't interested in picking it up. So many of the better features of that game have been absorbed into this one, but casinos are kind of wary because the earlier game didn't work so well. All right. Those are the new video poker games. Richard, did you find any table games that you thought were interesting to talk about?
No, almost everything I saw was a ripoff of a prior game, a ripoff of 3-card poker, or a new, variation on Ultimate Texas Hold'em, or I didn't see anything new or innovative in the table games, other than, and these are not really table games, but everything about this show was going after the millennials. That was what all the articles were about. Everybody wants to capture this millennial market because they're just not gambling. Why they think that's something new and different, I don't really understand, because traditionally casinos didn't make their money from young people. They made them from people who were over 40. So the question is, will the millennials, once they get over 40 and have more disposable income, will they gamble then? Anyway, they're all after the millennials, so they are trying to come up with these skill-based games and things that will appeal to them. So, for example, there's a virtual reality game where you get inside a giant lucite cube and put it on a VR headset and things like that. They did have these tabletop games that were actually kind of fun because you play them in a group. So it might be a 4-player game or a 6-player game. So if you're there with a group of friends, you all play this game together, and you each put in your $10 or $20 or whatever it is, and you go through a series of rounds of various different kind of card games or things, but it's all touchscreen, and you're competing with your friends, and the house is taking their rake on that. That I thought those type of games, had a chance of being popular. But yeah, the as far as the actual table games themselves, no, I didn't see anything really of any interest. I just saw an article today about, this was kind of interesting. To me, one of the worst things about casinos is the smoke. And there was an outfit there that has these smoke cleaner machines where basically it's like a phone booth that you go inside it to smoke, and it cleans the air cleaner than it was when you went in there. So you go in this booth to smoke, and there's no effect on anybody else. And the thrust of the article was, for years people talked about what a difficult transition it was going to be to get casinos to go non-smoking. And the person who wrote the article is a young person, and he said this is something that would help go after the millennials, because millennials apparently are not keen on the cigarette smoking in casinos. That's part of what turns them off about casinos. So anyway, anything that gets less smoke in casinos is good in my book. Did you see that smoke cleaner booth?
I did not see the smoke cleaner booth. One of the things I did see on Millennials, a skill-based game, was by Konami, and it generally was kind of like whack-a-mole, where the light, you have a screen, I don't know, maybe 5x5, 10x10, and lights would go on, and you hit the squares where the lights come on. And so it keeps going faster and faster, and you keep hitting those squares, and your score is based on how many squares you hit, whether you hit them perfectly or close to perfectly, or you missed them altogether. And I don't think it was ready to be released yet. It did seem kind of interesting. There was one guy there, probably a Konami employee, who seemed to have the pattern memorized. And so he was playing this matrix of squares, kind of like a touch typewriter, and he was hitting them all perfectly, because he knew where it was going to go. And of course, if these so players will learn to do this if the game is out there, and in that case, I don't see how a casino is going to make any money on it.
Well, I think they can set it so that no matter how well you play, like a good player, maybe the machine will hold 95%, and a bad player, it'll hold 90. I mean, it'll return 95%, and a bad player, it'll only return 90% or something. So that the better players get more time on the game, which is, what they're looking for. I saw another game by Gambit that was basically a first-person shooter game, very much like a video game you would see on Xbox or PlayStation. It was zombies, and there were 3 different modes you would go through. One, you're running through zombies with a chainsaw, carving them up, and you have to, the more zombies you kill, the more you win. And then there was a mode where you had a gun and you were shooting the zombies. And then another mode where you were basically just trying to run through a field avoiding the zombies, and the further you got without getting killed by the zombies, the better you did. That was by a company called Gambit.
Yeah, I passed the booth. I did not go in. I wasn't sure shooting zombies was protected by the Second Amendment, and I didn't really want to get into that argument. So, so I'm not a shoot 'em up kind of a guy. Did you play the game? Did you shoot any zombies?
I didn't play it, but the person that I was there with played it, and there's a learning curve getting used to the buttons that you use to navigate and things like that. But as I say, it looked very much like an Xbox game, so they definitely are going after that market.
Well, good. Well, a lot of Xbox players are way too young to get into a casino anyway.
Oh, yeah, but a lot of those players are now 30 years old. So.
All right. So that was our take on G2E.
Oh, I should mention the other thing that they keep talking about. The other big thing they were talking about, besides millennials, is esports. Every casino knows that this is a tidal wave of money that's coming, and they're all trying to figure out how to take advantage of it. So, and lots of sports teams are buying into esports franchises, and this is going to be huge. I didn't see anything that really has found a way to capture this, but that was the other thing they're all talking about. And it's funny because they all point to the Downtown Grand as being the one place that is going after this market, and really all they did was take out the high limit room and put in some computer stations where people can go play World of Warcraft and things like that. And they do have these little tournaments, so where you can earn money. They return, I believe, 100% of the prize money, so you can go down there and play these games and win some money in the tournaments. And I guess they're hoping that when you leave the esports lounge, you'll head over to the other parts of the casino and lose some money there.
Very good.
All right, that's it for this week. Thank you very much, Richard. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.